In European football, atmosphere is everything, and Celtic Park, a 60,000-seat stadium in Glasgow's East End, is widely regarded as producing the greatest matchday atmosphere on the continent. But behind that reputation lies a problem the club has never solved. More than 15,000 supporters sit on a waiting list for tickets they may never receive. New names are no longer accepted. And at sold-out matches, empty seats are visible on television, because without a resale system, unused tickets simply go to waste. The situation is reaching breaking point. Celtic have attempted expansion 3 separate times. 3 times it has collapsed. When supporters demanded answers, the official recorded response was stark. Expansion was not viable while we remain in the SPFL. This from a club holding around £100 million in cash reserves. But here's where the story changes. Celtic's own website confirms that rebuilding just one stand would push capacity to nearly 75,000. Plans for 80,000 were quietly commissioned in 2018 and never officially withdrawn. And one penalty shootout against a Kazakh club wiped £24 million from their accounts overnight, revealing just how complex this debate really is. So is an 80,000-seat Celtic Park a revolution waiting to happen, or another 30 years of hesitation? Today, we break down the full story. To understand why 80,000 seats matters so much to Celtic, you first need to understand what kind of club this actually is. Celtic wasn't built by rich businessmen or city officials. It was founded in 1887 by a Catholic monk named Brother Walfrid. His mission was simple: to raise money for Irish immigrant families living in poverty across Glasgow's East End. No investors, no boardroom agendas, just a community that needed something to believe in. The very first Celtic Park was built in under 6 months, almost entirely by volunteers from that same community. It grew so fast that within 3 years, the landlord hiked the annual rent from £50 to £450 overnight, betting that Celtic couldn't afford to leave. They were wrong. Celtic moved 200 yards down the road. They found a disused brickyard beside a cemetery and built a better stadium from scratch. A journalist watching it rise from the rubble wrote that Celtic had moved from the graveyard to paradise. That phrase became the stadium's name, and it still carries the same meaning for supporters today. By 1898, Celtic Park became the first football ground anywhere in the world to build a double-decker stand. By the 1930s, it was pulling in crowds that would make modern stadium directors uncomfortable. On New Year's Day, 1938, over 83,500 supporters packed in for an Old Firm derby, a record that has stood for over 87 years. Long before broadcast deals or corporate hospitality existed, Celtic were already operating on a scale the modern game sometimes treats as revolutionary. The stadium kept evolving. In 1971, the main stand underwent its biggest overhaul. Thousands of new seats, a completely new roof, and a press box considered the finest media facility in Scottish football. But the roof was flawed. It barely covered the seats below, leaving supporters exposed to the elements. Celtic took the architects to court over the failed design and won. Then, in 1988, for the club's centenary, a red brick facade was added. For the first time, Celtic Park had restaurant space and corporate hospitality boxes. The stadium was moving in the right direction, until everything nearly fell apart. In the early 1990s, Celtic's board announced plans to abandon Celtic Park entirely. They promoted a brand new 52,000-seat stadium in Cambuslang as the club's future. They spent years pushing it publicly, but the funding was never real. The debts mounted. Celtic came dangerously close to collapse. Fergus McCann arrived in 1994. He launched a public share issue, inviting supporters to buy into saving their own club. Over 4 years, he invested £40 million constructing 3 completely new stands. Celtic Park became a modern 60,000-seat fortress. But the rebuild was phased. The main stand, built on steelwork dating back to 1929 and last significantly rebuilt in 1971, was left untouched. That later has now stretched into 30 years. There have been upgrades along the way. LED lighting in 2018, hospitality box refurbishments more recently, but surface-level improvements can't fix what sits structurally underneath. The main stand is still running on 1929 steelwork, and that shows up in every number Celtic posts at the end of the season. Supporter demand has only grown. Celtic sell 52,000 to 53,000 season tickets every year, with renewal rates above 98%, one of the highest figures of any football club in the world. That leaves barely 500 to 1,000 seats available to new supporters. The waiting list became so unmanageable that Celtic stopped accepting names entirely, leaving thousands of fans facing projected waits of 15 years or more. And yet, despite every match being sold out, empty seats are still visible on television, because without a proper resale system, tickets that can't be used simply go to waste while someone on that waiting list watches from their sofa. This isn't just about prestige, it's about money left on the table. Matchday and stadium income sits around £60 million per year. Tottenham's Modern Ground generates over £100 million annually from matchday and commercial revenue alone. Every time Celtics step into the Champions League, they face clubs built on financial foundations their current stadium cannot match. Celtic already proved they could fill a stadium of over 80,000. They did it in 1938. The demand to do it again has never gone away. The only question now is whether the club has the infrastructure and the will to finally act on it. Celtic have held close to £100 million in cash reserves. Demand for tickets has never been stronger. And yet in September 2025, when executives were asked directly about rebuilding the main stand, the official response recorded in meeting minutes was simply this: it was not viable while we remain in the SPFL. That one sentence reframed the entire debate, because it wasn't an admission of financial weakness, it was a policy decision. As long as domestic broadcast revenues remain a fraction of what wealthier leagues generate, the board views a £100 million redevelopment as a risk attached to an income model they cannot fully control. For supporters who have spent decades waiting, that distinction felt like the door being quietly closed. But to understand why the board got there, you need to feel the full weight of what they were looking at. Beneath Celtic Park run disused Victorian railway tunnels and old mine shafts sitting directly under the site. Every structural decision has to be engineered around them, and in construction, adaptation means one thing: it costs more. Independent analysis described Celtic Park's ground conditions as among the most complicated of any stadium site in Britain. Above ground, the picture is equally tight. Residential streets, the Necropolis Cemetery so close that the north stand's upper tier is already cantilevered over the graves. There is no spare land, no construction yard. This is not a greenfield project. It never will be. That complexity feeds directly into the numbers. CEO Michael Nicholson confirmed at the 2022 AGM that a full main stand rebuild could approach £100 million. External estimates range from £80 million to £130 million, and climb higher if the 10,000 supporters currently in that stand need to be kept partially accommodated during construction. Demolish fully and capacity drops for 2 seasons. Phase it carefully and the bill rises. And then came August 2025. Celtic faced Kairat Almaty of Kazakhstan, a club most football fans had never heard of, in a Champions League playoff. They lost on penalties. Within 6 months, revenue had fallen from £83.5 million to £59.4 million. Trading profit collapsed from £26.9 million to just £4.2 million. £24 million gone because of one result: one penalty shootout. That is the financial environment in which the board was being asked to greenlight a 9-figure construction project. And suddenly, their hesitation becomes harder to dismiss. The consequences spread quickly. The museum project was shelved. The hotel and transport hub proposals were dropped. Cash reserves were confirmed as being held partly for UEFA financial sustainability compliance. And then came something that had never happened before in Celtic's history. The Celtic Supporters Association passed a formal motion of no confidence in the board. First time ever. That is not a protest. That is an institution telling the club's leadership that patience has a limit. opinions among serious voices remain split. Former Aberdeen CEO Keith Wines argued publicly that expanding raw capacity may not be the smartest move at all, that premium facilities and hospitality revenue would deliver stronger long-term returns than additional seats. He is not wrong about the economics. Financial analyst David Lowe, who has tracked Celtics finances for over 30 years, takes the opposite view entirely, stating he absolutely rejects the idea that Celtic cannot afford redevelopment, arguing the balance sheet could sustain measured borrowing if the will genuinely existed. The construction is complicated, the cost is significant, the income is volatile. But none of those words mean impossible, and the distance between difficult and impossible is exactly where this argument lives, and where the next chapter of Celtic Park's story will be written. Here is something most people covering this story have completely missed. Celtic do not need to build a brand new stadium to reach 80,000 seats. A fully rebuilt main stand, matching the height and depth of the 3 modern stands surrounding it, gives Celtic Park a capacity of nearly 75,000 on its own. Celtic's official website confirms this. Fill and roof the 4 partially open corners, and the stadium reaches 80,000. Not a radical reimagining, just completing what the 1990s rebuild left unfinished. In 2018, Celtic quietly commissioned architectural drawings for exactly this expansion, confirmed by multiple reports at the time and never officially withdrawn. The plans exist, they have never gone away. Liverpool faced a similar challenge and solved it by phasing Anfield's expansion across 2 stages. The main stand in 2016, the Anfield Road end in 2023, adding nearly 16,000 seats while keeping the ground fully operational throughout. Celtic can follow the same sequence without displacing a single existing season ticket holder. Financing tools are also sitting unused. Celtic have never once sold Celtic Park's naming rights. Atletico Madrid's naming deal brings in €10 million per season. A 10-year agreement at Celtic Park could generate significant funds toward the rebuild without touching the football budget. And in 2005, Celtic launched a share issue for a training facility, and demand from supporters exceeded available shares before the offer even closed. That same appetite has never been applied to the project that matters most. A rebuilt main stand with modern media facilities would meet UEFA's elite venue criteria, unlocking Celtic Park for international fixtures, concerts, and events the current ground cannot host. A Champions League final alone generates around £50 million in direct economic impact, and the current stadium cannot even apply to host one. Then there is the atmosphere. Celtic Park at 60,000, incomplete, with open corners and 1929 steelwork still underlying the main stand, already produces what Lionel Messi called the best atmosphere in Europe. Pochettino, who managed at the Bernabeu and Stamford Bridge, said that at Celtic Park a coach has to expect to lose control of the game because the crowd can unleash such force. At 80,000 fully enclosed, nobody in football would be able to describe what that becomes. Then, in December 2025, something shifted. Celtic chairman Peter Lawwell resigned, citing intolerable abuse and threats. His departure creates a real opening, a new chairman approaching the stadium question without 30 years of defensive caution behind them. The footprint supports 80,000, the tools exist, the boardroom is changing. An 80,000-seat Celtic Park is not a fantasy. It is the most obvious unfinished decision in Scottish football. The question is no longer whether it can be done. It is whether Celtic are finally ready to think on that scale again. So, will Celtic build the stadium their supporters deserve, or will this be another 30 years of waiting? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want more deep dives like this, subscribe and hit the like button. It genuinely helps more fans find this channel.